This is not a story meant to scare you. It's a confession that was never meant to be heard. What you're about to listen to is real, or at least, it was real to the person who lived it. Welcome to True Horror Confessions. If you're brave enough to keep listening, subscribe now. Because once these stories begin, they don't let you go. I'm writing this because I need someone to understand what happened, even if understanding doesn't change anything. Even if no one believes me, even if I'm not entirely sure I believe myself anymore. The doctors say I'm recovering, that the trauma will fade, that eventually I'll be able to sleep through the night without waking up screaming. But they don't know what I know. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't hear the sounds that still echo in my head every time I close my eyes. There was something living in the walls of my apartment building. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like the ramblings of someone who's lost their grip on reality. But I need you to understand that I am not crazy. I was not crazy. I was just unlucky enough to notice what everyone else had trained themselves to ignore. I moved into the Greystone Apartments in October, just as the weather was turning cold. It was one of those old buildings that dot the industrial parts of every city. Brick exterior, narrow hallways, radiators that clanked and hissed like dying animals. The rent was cheap, which should have been my first warning. Nothing in this city is cheap unless there's a reason. My unit was on the 4th floor, 4C, a studio with a bathroom the size of a closet, and a kitchen that was really just a corner with a hot plate and a mini fridge. The walls were thin. I could hear my neighbors on both sides, their televisions, their arguments, their lovemaking. I told myself I'd get used to it. I told myself this was just temporary, a stepping stone to something better. The first night, I heard scratching. It came from inside the wall behind my bed, a soft, rhythmic sound like fingernails dragging across wood. I lay there in the dark, listening, telling myself it was mice. Old buildings have mice. That's normal. That's fine. But it didn't sound like mice. It sounded deliberate, patient, like something was testing the wall, looking for a weak spot, trying to find a way through. I banged on the wall with my fist, and the scratching stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse. I could feel something on the other side, just inches away from my head, waiting, listening. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up with the lights on, watching the wall, waiting for something to happen. Nothing happened. By morning, I'd convinced myself I'd imagined it. But the next night, the scratching came back. Same time, same place, same patient rhythm. And this time, when I banged on the wall, it didn't stop. It got faster, more insistent, like whatever was making it was excited by my reaction. I complained to the super the next day. His name was Dimitri, a heavy-set man with a thick accent and a face that looked like it had stopped being surprised by anything decades ago. He listened to my complaint without expression. "Rats," he said when I finished. "Old building, many rats. I put traps. It didn't sound like rats." He shrugged. "What else? Is rats always rats?" He put down traps in the basement and told me to let him know if the problem continued. But there was something in his eyes when he said it, something that made me think he knew more than he was telling. The scratching continued. Every night, same time, same wall. I started sleeping on the couch, as far from that wall as I could get in my tiny apartment. It helped a little. The scratching seemed farther away, muffled, like it was coming from somewhere deep inside the building's bones. I tried to talk to my neighbors about it. The woman in 4B, a tired-looking single mother named Rosa, just shook her head when I mentioned the sounds. "Don't," she said, cutting me off. "Don't talk about it. Don't listen to it. Just don't." "Don't what? What do you mean?" She looked at me with something like pity in her eyes. "You're new. You'll learn. We all learn." Then she went inside her apartment and closed the door, and I heard the sound of multiple locks clicking into place. The man in 4D was worse. When I knocked on his door, he opened it just a crack, enough for me to see one bloodshot eye peering out at me. "You're hearing it," he said. It wasn't a question. "The scratching?" "Yes. Do you know what it is?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You don't want to know. Trust me. You really, really don't want to know." Then he closed the door in my face. I should have moved out. I know that. Any sane person would have. but I'd just started a new job, and I'd signed a year-long lease, and I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was just scratching, just sounds in the walls. Old buildings made all kinds of sounds. I was letting my imagination run wild. 2 weeks after I moved in, I saw the first one. I was coming home late from work, climbing the stairs to the 4th floor because the elevator had been broken since before I'd arrived. The stairwell was dim, lit only by bare bulbs that seemed to give off more shadow than light. As I passed the 3rd floor landing, I saw movement. Something was crawling on the ceiling. It was pale, almost white, and it moved with a horrible fluid grace, like a spider, but wrong, all wrong. It was the size of a large dog, but its proportions were human arms and legs that bent at too many joints, a torso that seemed too long, a head that was just a smooth, blank curve without any features I could see. I froze. My heart stopped. My lungs forgot how to breathe. The thing paused, as if it sensed my presence. Then, slowly, impossibly, it turned toward me, and I saw that it did have a face after all. It had been facing away from me, and now it was facing toward me. And the face was, I don't want to describe it. I can't. Some things are too wrong for words, but I'll never forget it. I see it every time I close my eyes. That face, looking at me from the ceiling, recognizing me, smiling. I ran. I don't remember the rest of the climb to the 4th floor. I don't remember unlocking my door or getting inside. I just remember slamming the door behind me and collapsing against it, sobbing, unable to think, unable to process what I'd seen. It wasn't real, I told myself. It couldn't be real. I was stressed, sleep-deprived, hallucinating. People hallucinated all the time. It didn't mean anything. But that night, the scratching in the walls was louder than ever. And for the first time, I heard something else. A sound like wet breathing, slow and labored, coming from somewhere just behind the plaster. Something was in there. Something alive. Something that knew I was listening. I called the police the next morning. They sent 2 officers who walked through my apartment, checked the walls, looked at me like I was wasting their time. "Ma'am, there's nothing here," one of them said. "If you're having pest problems, you need to talk to your landlord." I saw something. In the stairwell. It was on the ceiling. They exchanged a look, the kind of look people give each other when they're dealing with someone who's lost their mind. "Maybe you should talk to someone," the other officer said, not unkindly. "A professional. Stress can do funny things to people." After they left, I sat in my apartment and tried to convince myself they were right, that I was stressed, that I was imagining things, that there was a rational explanation for everything. Then I noticed the crack in the wall. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. A thin, dark line running from floor to ceiling, right behind where my bed used to be. I walked over to it slowly, my heart pounding, and pressed my eye to the crack. I saw darkness, nothing but darkness. But I could smell something coming through, a wet, organic smell, like rotting meat mixed with something else. Something I couldn't identify, but that made my stomach heave. And then, from deep within that darkness, I heard a sound. Breathing. Something was breathing on the other side of the wall. Something was right there, inches away from my face, separated from me by nothing but plaster and drywall. And as I listened, frozen with terror, the breathing changed. It became words. Not words I could understand, not any language I recognized, but words nonetheless, whispered in a voice that sounded like it had forgotten how to speak, like it was remembering the concept of language from some distant, half-forgotten past. I backed away from the wall. I backed away until I hit the opposite wall, and then I stood there, shaking, as the whispering continued. On and on, that horrible voice, speaking words that meant nothing, but somehow conveyed everything. Hunger, patience, longing, need, something wanted in, something that had been waiting for a very long time, and it was getting closer. I started investigating. I don't know why. Some part of me needed to understand, needed to prove to myself that I wasn't losing my mind. I went to the library and looked up the history of the Greystone Apartments. What I found made my blood run cold. The building had been constructed in 1923, originally as a textile factory. It was converted to apartments in 1952, after the factory closed. But between those dates, there were gaps. Periods where the building sat empty, where no records existed, where something might have happened that no one wanted to document, and there were deaths. So many deaths. I found newspaper clippings, yellowed and fragile, describing accidents at the factory, workers who fell into machinery, workers who were found dead in locked rooms with no explanation, workers who simply vanished, there one day and gone the next, their lockers still full of their belongings, their final paychecks never collected. In 1931, an entire shift of night workers, 17 people disappeared without a trace. The official explanation was that they'd abandoned their posts and fled to escape debts. But no one ever found any of them. It was as if they'd simply ceased to exist. And then there were the deaths in the apartments. After the conversion, not as many, but consistent. Every few years, someone would die under mysterious circumstances. Heart attacks in healthy young people. Falls from windows that had been locked from the inside. And the vanishings continued tenants who left all their possessions behind, who stopped showing up to work, who were never seen or heard from again. The police had investigated some of these cases, but the investigations always seemed to peter out, the files closed, the questions unanswered. It was as if something about the building made people not want to look too closely, made them want to forget. I found one interview, buried in the archives of a defunct local newspaper. It was from 1978, with a man named Walter Hendricks, who claimed to have lived in the building in the 1960 seconds. The interviewer had clearly thought he was crazy, and the article was framed as a kind of curiosity piece, a look at local eccentrics. But what Walter said matched everything I'd been experiencing. "There's something in the walls," he said. "Something that's been there since before the building was a building. It was there when this was just empty land. The factory was built on top of it, and then the apartments. But it's still there. It's always been there, and it's hungry." When asked what he meant, Walter refused to elaborate. "You can't talk about it," he said. "Talking about it makes it notice you, and you don't want it to notice you. Trust me, I made that mistake once. I spent 30 years trying to forget what I saw." The interview ended there. I looked for more information about Walter Hendricks, but found nothing. It was as if he'd vanished too, just like all the others. That night, the scratching wasn't just in one wall. It was everywhere. I lay in my bed. I'd moved it back, stupidly, because the couch hurt my back, and listened as the scratching surrounded me. Ceiling, floor, all four walls. That patient, rhythmic sound, like dozens of hands all working in unison, all searching for a way through. And underneath the scratching, I could hear other things, breathing, whispering, and something else. A sound like wet meat being dragged across stone, slow and heavy. Something was moving in there. Something big. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, rigid with terror, watching the walls as if I could see through them, as if at any moment something might push through, and I couldn't finish the thought. I couldn't let myself imagine what would happen if it got through. Morning came, eventually, gray and cold, and the sounds faded with the darkness. I got up, got dressed, went to work. I functioned. I did my job, and all the while, I was thinking about what to do. I couldn't stay in that apartment, but I couldn't leave either. I had no money, no savings, nowhere to go. And some part of me, the part that had pushed me to investigate in the first place, needed to know more, needed to understand what was happening. So I started watching the other tenants. There were patterns, once you knew what to look for. The people who'd lived in the building longest moved differently. They kept their heads down. They walked close to the center of hallways, as far from the walls as possible. They never used the stairs. If they could help it, they waited for the elevator, no matter how long it took, no matter how many times it broke down. And they never, ever talked about the sounds. But I noticed other things too. Things that didn't fit the pattern. Some of the tenants seemed almost normal, happy, even. They walked confidently, smiled at their neighbors, didn't flinch when they passed a wall. These were the newer residents, I assumed at first. People who hadn't been here long enough to learn. But then I saw one of them, a young man from the second floor, always cheerful, always friendly. I saw him standing in the stairwell late one night. He was facing the wall, his hand pressed against it, his lips moving as if he was speaking to someone. The wall was bulging outward where he touched it, pulsing, like something on the other side was pressing back. He turned and saw me watching, and he smiled a wide, beatific smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Don't worry," he said. "It's really not so bad once you accept it." I ran back to my apartment and locked the door. That night, I heard something new mixed in with the scratching and the breathing and the dragging sounds. Laughter, faint and distant, but unmistakably human. I started leaving the building as soon as the sun came up and not returning until I absolutely had to. I spent my days at work, my evenings in libraries and coffee shops, anywhere but that apartment. I slept in snatches, a few hours here and there when exhaustion overwhelmed my fear, but I couldn't escape it entirely. I still had to go home eventually. I still had to lie in that bed and listen to the sounds and wait for morning, and the sounds were getting worse. Not just louder, different. The scratching had become purposeful, focused on specific points in the walls. The breathing had become almost conversational, rising and falling like speech, and the dragging sounds had multiplied, as if there were many things moving in there now, circling my apartment like predators circling prey. I bought a stethoscope from a medical supply store. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that there was really something there. Maybe I just needed to know. I pressed it against the wall behind my bed, the one where the crack had appeared, and I listened. What I heard, God, what I heard, heartbeats, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all beating at slightly different rhythms, all coming from inside the wall. And underneath the heartbeats, that whispering voice, clearer now, almost intelligible, letting us in, promised, so long, hungry, letting us in. I tore the stethoscope off my ears and threw it across the room. I stood there, gasping, my hands shaking, my mind racing. Someone had promised them something. Someone was letting them in. The cheerful man from the second floor, the way he touched the wall, the way the wall had responded, the way he'd smiled when he said it wasn't so bad. There were people in this building who were working with the things in the walls, who were helping them, who were maybe even feeding them. I thought about the deaths I'd read about, the disappearances, all those people who'd simply vanished over the decades. I thought about how easy it would be for someone to go missing in a building like this, how few questions would be asked, how quickly everyone would forget. I thought about the way the other long-term residents kept their heads down, the way they refused to talk about what they heard, the way they seemed to accept their fear as simply the price of living here. How many of them knew? How many of them were part of it? I couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't tell anyone. I was alone in a building full of things that wanted to consume me, and some of the other tenants were probably helping them do it. I should have left. I should have walked out that night and never come back. Lease be damned. Possessions be damned. Everything be damned. But I didn't. Because that's when I found the door. It was in the basement, behind a shelf full of old paint cans and cleaning supplies that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. I was down there looking for Dimitri, hoping to convince him to let me out of my lease, when I noticed the shelf wasn't quite flush against the wall. There was a gap behind it, and through the gap, I could see the outline of a door. I moved the shelf. It took all my strength, and the noise it made echoed through the basement like thunder. But finally, I got it out of the way, and there it was. A metal door, rusted with age but solid. It had no handle on this side, no obvious way to open it, but it had a small window at eye level, thick glass that was almost opaque with grime. I wiped the glass with my sleeve and pressed my face to it. I couldn't see much. The space beyond was dark, lit only by a faint luminescence that might have been bioluminescence or might have been something else entirely. But I could make out shapes, tunnels, branching off in multiple directions, their walls glistening wetly, and I could see movement. Things crawling on the walls and ceiling, pale and wrong, too many limbs, too many joints, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all moving with that horrible fluid grace I'd seen in the stairwell. They weren't staying in the walls. They had their own space, their own territory, connected to the building but separate from it. A network of tunnels that might extend for miles. For all I knew, a nest. As I watched, one of them turned toward the door, toward the window, toward me. It started crawling closer. I should have run, but I was frozen, hypnotized by the sight of it. That blank face, that smile, those eyes that weren't eyes but something else, something worse. It reached the window and pressed itself against the glass. I could see its face clearly now, inches from my own, and I understood something that shattered what remained of my sanity. It had been human once. The shape of it, the structure. Underneath all the wrongness, there was something recognizable. A human face, stretched and distorted but still human. Human hands, though now they bent the wrong way. A human body, though now it was pale and boneless and moved in ways no human body should. This was what happened to the people who disappeared. This was where they went, into the walls, into the tunnels, transformed into these things, these crawling, hungry things that scratched and whispered and waited for more. And it recognized me too. I saw it in the way it tilted its head, the way its smile widened. It knew who I was. It had been watching me, probably, through cracks in the walls, through gaps in the plaster. It had been waiting for me. It pressed harder against the glass, and I heard it speak. Not through the door, through the glass itself, vibrating with its voice. Soon, it said. Very soon now. You'll understand. You'll join us. Everyone does, eventually. I ran. I ran up the basement stairs and out of the building, and I didn't stop until I was blocks away, gasping for breath, my heart threatening to explode. I didn't go back that night. I slept in my car, parked under a streetlight, watching every shadow, jumping at every sound. It was the worst night of my life, but not the last worst night, because I did go back. I had to. My phone was there, my wallet, my identification. Everything I needed to survive in the world was in that apartment, and I couldn't just abandon it all. I went back the next morning, in broad daylight, when the sounds were always quietest. I planned to grab my things and leave, find a shelter, start over somehow. But when I got to my floor, my door was already open. I could see into my apartment from the hallway. Everything looked normal at first, my furniture in place, my clothes where I'd left them. But as I stepped closer, I saw what was different. The walls were covered in cracks, dozens of them, hundreds, spreading out from the wall behind my bed like a spider web. And through the cracks, I could see darkness, could smell that wet organic smell, could hear, faintly, the sound of breathing. They were almost through. I stepped into the apartment because I had to. My wallet was on the counter, right where I'd left it. I just needed to grab it and go. 10 seconds. I could do this in 10 seconds. I made it 3 steps before the floor gave way. It happened so fast I didn't have time to scream. One moment I was walking, the next the floorboards were splintering beneath me, and then I was falling. Down through darkness, through cold, wet air that smelled like rot and worse things, down and down until I hit something soft that broke my fall, but also broke something inside me. I felt my ribs crack, felt the air driven out of my lungs. I lay there in the darkness, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to do anything but wait for the pain to pass enough for me to think. When I could finally open my eyes, I wished I hadn't. I was in the tunnels, the ones I'd seen through the basement door. But I was deep inside them now, far from any exit I could see. The walls around me glistened wetly, covered in something that looked like membrane, organic and alive. And the faint luminescence was brighter here, bright enough to see by, bright enough to see them. They were everywhere, clinging to the walls, hanging from the ceiling, clustered in corners like living shadows. Dozens of those pale, distorted forms, all facing me, all watching with those not eyes, all smiling those terrible smiles. I tried to scream, but I had no air. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond. I could only lie there, broken and helpless. As they began to crawl toward me, they moved slowly, deliberately. They knew I wasn't going anywhere. They had all the time in the world. The first one reached me and crouched down, bringing its face close to mine. Up close, I could see more details of what it had been. A woman, I thought, from the bone structure. Someone young once, Someone who had probably moved into this building, full of hope, just like me. "Don't be afraid," it said. Its voice was like dead leaves in wind. "The fear doesn't last. Nothing lasts. But we go on. We always go on." It reached out and touched my face with a hand that had too many fingers. The touch was cold and slightly damp, and where it touched me, I felt something a tingling, spreading sensation, like numbness, but worse. "You've been chosen," it said. "We've been watching you. You're strong. You'll make a good addition." I found my voice somehow. "Please," I croaked. "Please. I don't want." "No one wants it. At first. But you'll learn to want it. You'll learn to need it. The hunger is everything. Eventually. The hunger is all." More of them were gathering around me now, pressing close, reaching out to touch me with those wrong hands. Everywhere they touched, that tingling spread, that numbness, that horrible feeling of my body starting to become something else. "The process takes time," the first one continued. "Days, weeks, it varies. But we'll be with you every moment. We'll help you through the transition, and when it's over, you'll be one of us. You'll understand everything. You'll be free." I was crying. I could feel the tears running down my face, but I couldn't wipe them away. I couldn't move at all now. The numbness had spread to my limbs, freezing them in place. "Why?" I managed to whisper. "Why do you do this?" The thing that had been a woman tilted its head, considering the question. "Because we're hungry," it said simply. "Because we've always been hungry. Because there is a hole inside us that can never be filled, only fed. And you," it stroked my cheek, almost tenderly, "you will help us feed it. Your fear, your despair, your slow dissolution into what we are. It sustains us. It keeps us going." "The building," I said. My voice was getting weaker, the numbness spreading to my chest, my throat. "The people upstairs, they're helping you. Some of them. The ones who understand. The ones who've accepted the truth." Its smile widened. "Every building needs caretakers. Every nest needs someone to bring in fresh meat." It leaned closer, until its face was inches from mine, until I could smell its breath decay in darkness and something sweet underneath, something almost pleasant, which made it so much worse. "Your neighbors know," it whispered. "They've always known. Some of them have been feeding us for years, bringing us the lonely ones, the vulnerable ones, the ones no one will miss." It paused. "Like you." The last word hit me like a physical blow. No one would miss me. I'd moved to this city alone, cut ties with my family, had no close friends. If I disappeared, who would even notice? Who would ask questions? I was perfect prey, and I'd walked right into the trap. "The scratching," I said, struggling to form words as the numbness crept up my neck. "Why? Why did you let me hear it?" "We didn't let you. You heard it because you were listening. Most people don't. Most people have trained themselves to ignore the sounds, to forget them as soon as they hear them. But you paid attention. You investigated. You made yourself visible to us." The thing laughed. That horrible sound I'd heard through my walls. "In a way, you did this to yourself. If you'd just ignored the scratching, gone about your life, never asked questions, you might have lived in that building for years before we took you. But you couldn't leave it alone. You had to know. It was right. That was the worst part. I'd done this to myself. My curiosity, my need to understand it, had led me straight into their mouths." The numbness reached my face. I couldn't speak anymore, couldn't move at all. I could only lie there, frozen, as they gathered closer around me, as they began to do things to my body that I could feel but couldn't react to. The pain was indescribable. But what was worse was the knowledge that it would end, that the pain would fade, and I would fade with it, and something else would take my place, something hungry, something wrong. The last thing I remember, before the darkness took me, was the face of the thing that had been a woman. It was smiling down at me with what might have been compassion. "Don't fight it," it said. "The more you fight, the longer it takes. Just let go. Let yourself become." I didn't want to. I held on as long as I could, clinging to my sense of self, my memories, my identity. But they had all the time in the world, and I was so tired, and the darkness was so deep. Eventually, I let go. What happened next? I don't know how to describe. I don't know if I can describe it. There were no words in that place, no concepts that translate to human language. There was only transformation, slow, agonizing, complete. I felt my body change, felt my bones soften and bend, felt my skin lose its color, its texture, felt my face stretch and distort into something new. And I felt the hunger, that terrible, endless hunger they'd talked about. It started small, just a gnawing in my gut, but it grew and grew until it was all I could think about, until it was all I was. I don't know how long I was down there, days, weeks. There was no time in the tunnels, no day or night, just the darkness and the hunger and the slow reshaping of everything I'd been. But I wasn't finished. That's the thing. That's why I'm here now, telling you this. Something went wrong with my transformation. Or something went right, depending on how you look at it. I didn't complete the process. I stopped somewhere in the middle, caught between what I was and what I was becoming. Maybe I was too stubborn. Maybe my will to survive was stronger than they expected. Or maybe, just maybe, some part of them didn't want to finish me. Some remnant of humanity in the thing that had been a woman. Some flicker of conscience that stayed its hand. I don't know. I'll never know. But one night, or what passed for night down there, I woke up and I could move. Not like them. Not that fluid crawling motion. But I could drag myself, slowly, painfully, along the tunnel floor. And I did. For what felt like hours, I dragged myself through the darkness, following some instinct I couldn't name, until I found a crack in the tunnel wall. A crack that led up. I climbed. I don't know how. My body wasn't working right anymore, wasn't shaped the way it used to be, but I climbed anyway, inch by inch, through spaces that should have been too narrow, through darkness so complete I couldn't tell which way was up. And finally, impossibly, I emerged. I came out through the floor of a warehouse 3 blocks from the Greystone Apartments. It was morning, and there was light, and the light hurt me in ways I can't describe. But I kept moving, kept dragging myself toward the door, toward the outside, toward anything that wasn't the tunnels. A security guard found me. I don't know what he saw when he looked at me, but he screamed and ran and called the police, who called an ambulance, who took me to a hospital where doctors tried to understand what had happened to me. They couldn't, of course. My body was different, changed in ways that medical science couldn't explain. But I was alive, still human, mostly, still me, at least partially. The transformation didn't complete. Whatever they started, they didn't finish. I escaped before they could make me fully one of them. But I'm not unchanged. My skin is paler now, almost translucent in certain lights. My joints move in ways they didn't used to, bend at angles that feel wrong but work anyway. And sometimes, late at night, I feel the hunger, that gnawing emptiness that wants to be fed. I don't give in to it. I won't. But it's always there, whispering at the edge of my consciousness, reminding me of what I almost became. The doctors have done their best. They've treated my physical injuries, helped me regain function in my limbs, referred me to therapists who are trying to help me process what they think was a psychotic break combined with severe physical trauma. They don't believe me when I tell them what happened. Why would they? It sounds insane. It sounds impossible. But the Greystone Apartments are still there. I've checked. Still housing tenants, still collecting rent, still slowly feeding the things in the walls. I called the police. Told them everything. They sent officers to investigate, and the officers found nothing. No tunnels, no creatures, no evidence of anything wrong, just an old building with thin walls and a rat problem. Dimitri is still the super. I saw his name on the report. He told the police I was a former tenant who'd had mental health issues. He seemed very sad about what had happened to me. I wonder how many tenants he's fed to them over the years. I wonder if he started willingly, or if they got to him too. The building is still open. That's what haunts me most. Every day, new tenants move in. Young people, mostly, attracted by the cheap rent, just like I was. They unpack their boxes and set up their furniture and lie down to sleep in their beds, inches away from walls that are full of things waiting to be fed. And every night, The scratching continues. The breathing continues. The hungry whispering continues. Most of them will never notice. Most of them will live their whole lives in that building without ever seeing what I saw, without ever hearing what's really making those sounds. They'll move out eventually, find better places, go on with their lives. They'll be the lucky ones. But some of them will notice. Some of them will hear the scratching and wonder what's making it. Some of them will investigate, just like I did. And some of them will disappear, just like all the others, absorbed into the walls, transformed into something that stopped being human a long time ago. I tried to warn people. I made posts online, wrote letters to the housing authority, even stood outside the building with a sign for one desperate, humiliating afternoon. No one listened. No one believed me. The few people who stopped to hear me out walked away convinced I was crazy. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe this is all just a elaborate delusion, a psychotic fantasy constructed by a broken mind trying to make sense of trauma it can't process. But my body is wrong. That's the thing I can't explain away. My skin, my joints, the way I move now, that's real. That's physical. Something happened to me in that building. Something that changed me at a fundamental level. And no amount of therapy is going to make my body normal again. The doctors have theories. Genetic disorders, unknown diseases, environmental contamination. They've run every test they can think of, and they've found nothing that explains what I've become. I'm a medical mystery, a case study that will probably be written up in journals and puzzled over by specialists for years. But I know what happened, even if no one believes me. Even if I can barely believe it myself sometimes. I was almost eaten, almost transformed, almost absorbed into something ancient and hungry that lives beneath the streets of this city, connected to buildings like the Greystone, through tunnels and cracks and doors that are hidden behind shelves and basements. And I escaped. Somehow, impossibly, I escaped, but I'm not free. The hunger is always there, just below the surface. And sometimes, when I'm very tired or very stressed or very alone, I hear them, the whispers, coming from inside my own head now, from whatever part of me they managed to change before I got away. They're not giving up on me. They're patient, and they're hungry, and they know I'm still partially one of them. Come back, the whispers say. You're not finished. You'll never be finished. Come back and let us complete what we started. I won't. I refuse. I will fight this for the rest of my life if I have to. But some nights, when the hunger is bad and the whispers are loud, and I can feel my body wanting to bend in ways it shouldn't, I wonder how long I can hold out. I wonder if there's a point where the transformation becomes irreversible, where the thing they put inside me takes over completely, where I stop being me and start being them. I wonder if I'll know when it happens, or if I'll just wake up one morning and find myself crawling toward the nearest wall, looking for a crack to slip through, looking for a way back to the tunnels and the darkness and the endless, endless hunger. I haven't slept well in months. Every time I close my eyes, I see the tunnels. I see their faces. I see the thing that had been a woman, smiling at me, telling me not to fight. I see what I almost became. My therapist says I have PTSD. She's right, as far as it goes. But she doesn't understand what I'm traumatized by. She thinks I was the victim of some kind of assault or kidnapping, something she can categorize and treat with established methods. She doesn't know that the thing that almost destroyed me is still out there, still feeding, still waiting. She doesn't know that part of it is inside me now, and it's never going to leave. I've thought about going back, not to the building. I could never go back there, but to the tunnels, finding another entrance, another way in, going down there with a camera, with recording equipment, with proof that what I'm saying is true. But I know what would happen if I did that. They're waiting for me. They've been waiting since I escaped. If I went back down there, I wouldn't come out again, not even part way. They'd finish what they started, and the thing that emerged wouldn't be me anymore. So I stay away. I try to build a life on the surface, try to find reasons to keep going, try to ignore the hunger and the whispers and the wrongness of my own body. I write this account, hoping someone will read it and believe me, hoping someone with more resources, more courage, more sanity will take up the cause and find a way to stop them. But I know how unlikely that is. I know how this reads. I know that anyone who makes it this far will probably dismiss me as just another damaged person with a damaged mind, telling damaged stories to make sense of something traumatic. I can't blame them. I wouldn't believe me either. All I can do is tell the truth and hope. The truth is this: there are things living beneath our cities. Old things, hungry things. They've been here longer than we have, and they'll be here long after we're gone. They hide in the spaces between our walls, in tunnels we never knew existed, in the darkness that pools wherever the light doesn't reach, and they feed on us. Not all at once, not obviously. They're patient, these things. They take us slowly, one at a time, the ones who won't be missed. They transform us into more of themselves, building their numbers, expanding their territories, always hungry, always reaching for more. There are buildings all over this city where the walls aren't quite right, where the sounds at night seem wrong, where tenants disappear and no one asks too many questions. The Greystone isn't unique. It's just the one I found. If you live in an old building, pay attention. Listen to the sounds the walls make at night. Notice if your neighbors seem strange, if they avoid the walls, if they know things they shouldn't about the building's history. And if you hear scratching, that patient, rhythmic scratching, like fingers testing the plaster, don't investigate. Don't ask questions. Don't try to find out what's making it. Just leave. Leave while you still can, while you're still entirely human, while the thing in the walls hasn't noticed you yet. Because once it notices you, it doesn't stop. It watches and waits and plans, and eventually, when you're vulnerable, when you're alone, when you've forgotten to be afraid, it takes you. I got away. I'm one of the lucky ones, if you can call this luck. I live with the scars, inside and out. I live with the hunger, the whispers, the knowledge of what I almost became. But I'm still here, still human, still fighting. For now, the whispers are getting louder lately. My body is changing again. In small ways, my fingers are slightly longer than they used to be. My joints pop in new directions. My eyes are sensitive to light in ways they weren't before. I don't know what this means. I don't know if the transformation is continuing, slowly, inevitably, no matter how far I am from the tunnels. I don't know if I'm going to wake up one morning and find that I've lost more of myself, that the thing they put in me has grown while I slept. I don't know how this story ends. Maybe I'll be fine. Maybe my body will stabilize, the changes will stop, and I'll find a way to live with what I've become. Maybe I'll have years, decades, a full life ahead of me. Or maybe I'll walk into my bathroom one morning and look in the mirror and see something looking back that isn't me anymore. Maybe the hunger will become too strong, and I'll find myself crawling toward a wall, looking for a crack, unable to stop. Maybe I'll end up back in the tunnels after all, transformed completely this time, feeding alongside the things that almost fed on me. I don't know. I can't know. All I can do is fight, day by day, hour by hour, trying to hold on to what's left of my humanity. If you're reading this, remember me. Remember that I tried. Remember that I got away, at least for a while. And if you ever move into an old building with cheap rent and thin walls, if you ever hear scratching in the night, that patient, rhythmic sound that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, think of me. Think of what happened to me, and run. I wish I had. The scratching has started again. I can hear it now, faintly, coming from the wall of my hospital room. The same rhythm, the same patience, the same hunger. They found me. I don't know how. I'm miles from the Greystone, in a completely different building, and yet somehow they've found me. Somehow they've followed me. Somehow, the tunnels extend this far, or there are other tunnels, other nests, other hungers that have sensed what I am and want to finish what was started. The scratching is getting louder, faster, more insistent. I can see a crack forming in the wall across from my bed. Just a thin, dark line, barely visible, but growing, spreading, reaching toward me, and I can hear them whispering through it. "Come home," they say. "Come home. You're almost ready now. You're almost one of us. Just let go. Just let us in. Just stop fighting." I don't want to. I want to live. I want to be human. I want to find someone who believes me, who can help me, who can stop this from happening to anyone else. But I'm so tired, and the hunger is so strong, and my body doesn't feel like mine anymore. It feels like theirs, like something they made, like something that belongs in the darkness rather than the light. The crack is wider now. I can smell that smell again, that wet, organic rot. I can see movement behind the wall, pale shapes pressing against the plaster. They're coming for me. And this time, I don't think I can run. This time, I don't think I want to. If anyone finds this, please remember me. Tell people what happened. Warn them about the buildings, the walls, the sounds in the night. And if you ever hear scratching in your walls, don't listen, don't investigate. Don't make the same mistake I did. Just run, and don't stop running, and don't ever look back. The crack is almost wide enough now. I can see them clearly. I can see their faces, their smiles, their eyes that aren't eyes. They're reaching for me, and God help me. I'm reaching back. I need to go back. Before the end, before they take me completely, I need to tell you more. I need you to understand everything. The first time I heard someone else talk about the scratching was a month into my stay at the Greystone. A man named Paul lived in 4A, the apartment at the end of the hall. He was older, maybe 60, with the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. We met in the laundry room in the basement, and I made the mistake of mentioning the sounds in my walls. His reaction told me everything. His face went white. His hands, which had been folding a shirt, started shaking so badly he had to put it down. "You hear them too," he said. Not a question. "Every night. Do you know what they are?" He looked around the basement, checking that we were alone. Then he leaned close and spoke in a whisper I could barely hear. "I've lived in this building for 11 years. When I moved in, I was like you. I heard the sounds. I asked questions. I tried to find out what was happening." He paused, swallowing hard. "I found out. God help me. I found out." "What did you see?" "I can't." He stopped, his voice breaking. "I can't talk about it. Not here. They listen. They're always listening. Through the walls, through the floors, through the cracks we can't even see." He grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "If you're smart, you'll stop asking questions. You'll learn to ignore the sounds like everyone else does. You'll pretend everything is normal, and maybe, if you're lucky, they'll leave you alone. But the scratching is nothing. The scratching is nothing compared to what comes next." His eyes met mine, and I saw something in them that I didn't understand then but understand now. Not just fear, acceptance, the look of someone who had already surrendered. "They don't take everyone," he continued. "Just the curious ones, the ones who can't leave well enough alone. If you can make yourself boring, if you can stop noticing, stop caring, stop being interested, maybe you'll survive." "How do you do that? How do you just not notice?" He let go of my arm and stepped back. "Practice. A lot of practice. And sleeping pills. Enough sleeping pills that you don't wake up when the sounds get bad. Enough that you don't remember your dreams." He picked up his laundry basket and headed for the stairs. But at the bottom, he paused and looked back at me. "I saw your face when you moved in," he said. "I knew right away you weren't going to make it. You have that look, the curious look, the one that gets people killed around here." He shook his head slowly. "I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't help you. No one can help you now." Then he was gone, climbing the stairs with the slow, careful gait of someone who had learned never to get too close to the walls. I didn't listen to him. I should have. Instead, I kept digging, kept asking questions, kept making myself visible to things that should never have known my name. But now I understand what he meant. About the look, about the curiosity that gets people killed. I see it sometimes, in the other patients here at the hospital, the ones who are here for mental health reasons, who have stories about things they've seen that no one believes. Some of them have that look, the same look Paul saw in me, the look of someone who can't stop noticing, can't stop wondering, can't stop pulling at threads, even when the whole fabric is starting to unravel. I wonder how many of them have been to places like the Greystone. I wonder how many of them have heard the scratching, seen the things in the walls, felt that first cold touch of transformation before escaping. I wonder if any of them made it out as intact as I did, or if they're all like me, damaged, changed, carrying pieces of the darkness inside them that will never go away. There's a woman in the room next to mine. Her name is Janet. She doesn't speak much, but sometimes at night I hear her crying through the wall, and sometimes, mixed with the crying, I hear her whispering. "They're in the walls," she whispers. "They're in the walls, they're in the walls, they're in the walls," over and over, all night long. I think she's been somewhere like the Greystone too. I think she knows what I know. But every time I try to talk to her about it, she looks at me with terrified eyes and shakes her head. "Don't," she says. "Don't talk about it. Talking makes them hear you. Talking makes them come." Maybe she's right. Maybe that's why they've found me here, in this hospital, so far from where it started. Because I've been talking, writing, trying to tell people what happened. Every word I put down is like a beacon, calling to them, letting them know where I am, but I can't stop. I have to finish this. I have to leave some record of what happened, even if no one believes it. Even if the only person who ever reads this is the nurse who finds my empty bed tomorrow morning. The tunnels extend farther than I realized. That's something else I learned during my time in the darkness. When I was down there, before I escaped, I had moments of strange clarity, moments when I could sense the shape of the network, feel the extent of it spreading out in all directions beneath the city. It goes everywhere. Under hospitals and schools and office buildings. Under homes where families sleep peacefully, never knowing what's moving just beneath their foundations. Under churches and police stations and government buildings. Nowhere is safe. Nowhere is beyond their reach. The things in the walls have been here for a very, very long time. They were here before the city, before the country, before humans ever set foot on this continent. They're not natural, I don't think so. Anyway, they feel like something that came from somewhere else, something that arrived a long time ago and has been feeding ever since, feeding and growing and spreading, slow and patient, expanding their network one tunnel at a time. The city grew up around them without ever knowing they were there. Buildings went up over their tunnels. People lived and worked and died inches away from things that were watching, waiting, hungry. Sometimes, when a building was constructed in just the wrong place, the things in the walls would take notice, would start to work their way up, through the foundations, through the basements, into the spaces between walls, would start to scratch, to whisper, to wait. The Greystone was one of those buildings, but there are others, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all over the city, all over every city. You've probably been in one. You've probably slept in one, without ever knowing, walked past walls that contained things older than humanity, hungrier than anything you can imagine. Maybe you heard sounds and told yourself it was mice. Maybe you felt a chill when you walked past a certain wall and dismissed it as a draft. Maybe you had dreams about darkness and crawling things and woke up sweating, but forgot the dreams by morning. If you're lucky, you'll never hear the scratching. You'll never see the cracks forming. You'll never have that moment of horrible clarity when you realize the building you thought was safe has been hunting you all along. But if you're not lucky, if you're like me, like Janet, like all the others who notice too much, then God help you. Because once they know you can see them, they don't stop. They never stop. I've been in this hospital for 3 months now. The doctors say I'm making progress. The therapists say I'm processing my trauma in healthy ways. Everyone is very optimistic about my recovery. They don't see the way my skin moves sometimes, rippling like something underneath is trying to get out. They don't see the way my joints have started bending in new directions while I sleep. They don't hear the whispers that are constant now, a background noise that never stops. That's becoming harder and harder to distinguish from my own thoughts. The transformation is continuing, slowly, but steadily. Whatever they started in the tunnels, it's still happening. And there's nothing the doctors can do about it, because they don't even know it's happening. I've thought about telling them, showing them the way my fingers bend now, the way my shoulder blades have started to protrude, the way my skin has become almost translucent over certain bones. But I know what they'd do. They'd run tests, take samples, try to understand, and they wouldn't understand. They'd just draw attention. They'd make noise, ask questions, maybe even try to investigate buildings like the Greystone. They'd make themselves visible, and then the things in the walls would notice them too. So I stay quiet. I pretend the changes aren't happening. I wear long sleeves to cover my arms, avoid touching anyone so they won't feel how cold my skin has become. I act normal as I can, while inside I'm counting the days until there's nothing normal left. I don't know how much longer I have. The whispers say it varies. Some transformations take weeks, some take months, some take years. It depends on how much of you they got before you escaped, and how hard you fight against what you're becoming. I've been fighting, every day, every hour. But I'm getting tired, and the hunger is getting stronger. I caught myself looking at one of the nurses yesterday. Not the way you normally look at someone, but the way a predator looks at prey. Measuring, calculating, hungry. I looked away before she noticed. But that moment scared me more than anything else has. What if I'm not fighting the transformation? What if I'm just delaying it? What if every day I hold on is just one more day of false hope? One more day of pretending I'm still human when the thing inside me has already won? The crack in my wall is bigger now. I've been watching it grow all day, spreading across the plaster like a living thing. The scratching behind it is constant, not rhythmic anymore, but frantic, eager. They know I'm close. They know I'm almost ready. I can see shapes through the crack, faces pressed against the gap, smiling at me with mouths that have too many teeth, hands reaching toward me, beckoning, welcoming me home. "You've done so well," they whisper. "You've fought so hard, but it's time to rest now, time to stop fighting, time to become what you were always meant to be." Part of me wants to listen. Part of me is so tired of fighting, so tired of being afraid, so tired of being caught between what I was and what I'm becoming. It would be so easy to just give in, to let the transformation complete, to stop being this half thing and become something whole. But another part of me, the part that's still human, still me, is screaming, begging me to hold on just a little longer, reminding me that as long as I'm fighting, I'm still alive, still myself, still worth saving. I don't know which part is going to win. The crack is wider than my hand now. I can feel cold air coming through it, that wet, organic smell that means the tunnels are close, very close. They're going to come through tonight. I can feel it. Everything that's been building since I first moved into the Greystone, all the scratching, the whispers, the slow transformation of my body, it's all been leading to this moment. This is where my story ends, one way or another. If I'm lucky, if there's any luck left for someone like me, I'll find a way to fight them off. I'll survive another night, another day, another week. I'll keep writing, keep warning people, keep hoping that someone somewhere will believe me and do something about it. But if I'm not lucky, if the thing inside me wins, if the transformation completes, if I become one of them, then this will be the last thing I ever write as a human being. Tomorrow morning, when the nurse comes to check on me, she'll find either a person or a monster. I honestly don't know which. All I know is that the scratching has stopped. That's what scares me most. For months, the scratching has been constant. Every night, without fail, that patient rhythmic sound reminding me they were there. They were waiting. They were hungry. But now it's stopped, and the silence is worse. The crack in the wall is open now. Not a crack anymore, a hole, a doorway. And through it, I can see the tunnel stretching away into darkness. They're not scratching anymore because they don't need to. They're not trying to get through anymore because they're already here. I can see them, standing in the doorway between my room and the tunnels, watching me with their knot eyes, smiling with their too many teeth smiles, waiting for me to make a choice. "Come home," they say. "You've been away so long. We've missed you." The hunger is screaming now. Every cell in my body wants to go to them, to crawl through that hole into the darkness where I belong. My hands are moving toward the wall without my permission. My body is making the choice my mind refuses to make. I'm typing with one hand now. The other is already touching the wall, feeling the cold dampness of the tunnel beyond, feeling the rightness of it. This is it. This is how it ends. I want you to know I tried. I fought as long as I could. But some battles can't be won. Some transformations can't be stopped. Some hungers are stronger than any human will. They're pulling me toward the wall now. I can feel their hands on my arms, gentle but insistent. They're whispering words of comfort, telling me it won't hurt, telling me I'll understand everything soon. And the terrible thing is, I believe them. The terrible thing is, part of me wants to understand. Goodbye. To whoever reads this, whatever happens next, please remember me as I was, not as what I'm about to become. And if you ever hear scratching in your walls, run. For God's sake, run before it's too late, before you become like me, before you understand why the hunger never, ever stops. There is one more thing I need to tell you, something I haven't mentioned until now because I wasn't sure it was real, because I wanted to believe I was imagining it. The thing that was a woman, the one who spoke to me in the tunnels, who told me not to fight. I saw her face clearly in those last moments before I escaped. I recognized her. She was in the photographs, the ones I found at the library, the newspaper clippings from decades past, missing persons, vanished tenants. She was one of them. Her name was Margaret Hollis. She went missing in 1987, 36 years ago. She was 28 years old at the time, a school teacher, unmarried, no family to ask questions. She'd been down there for 36 years, transformed, feeding, still wearing traces of the face she'd had when she was human. That's what waits for me if I don't escape. That's what I'll become. 36 years, 60, 100. However long the hunger keeps us going, forever. I don't want to live forever. Not like that. Not as something that crawls through tunnels and feeds on fear and wears the stretched remnants of a human face like a mask. But I don't think I have a choice anymore. The hole in the wall is waiting. The hands are pulling. The hunger is singing. And somewhere deep inside me, in a place that isn't human anymore, something is finally ready to go home. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Goodbye. Remem, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everyone I couldn't save, everyone I couldn't warn in time, everyone who will move into the Greystone after me, who will hear the scratching and wonder what it means. The scratching never stops. Even now, with the hole open, with them standing right here beside me, I can hear scratching from other walls, other rooms, other victims waking up to the same horror I woke up to months ago. It never stops because they're always hungry, always reaching, always looking for the next curious person who notices too much, asks too many questions, can't leave well enough alone. I was one of those people, and now I'm paying the price. The hole is so wide now, wide enough for me to crawl through, wide enough for whatever I'm becoming to fit. They're not pulling anymore. They don't need to. My body is moving on its own, crawling toward the darkness, toward the tunnels, toward the place where I belong. I can't stop it. I don't want to stop it anymore. The hunger is everything now. The hunger is all. This is my last moment as myself. My last thought as a human being. Please, whoever finds this, whatever's left of this account when morning comes, please remember that I tried. I tried so hard, but in the end, the walls always win. The walls win.